Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Monday, January 26th to order. Before I start, it's an honor to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, represented today by the Songhees and Kasepsum nations. We're grateful to live, work, and play in this special place. Item 2, approval of the agenda. I have removed item 8.2 from tonight's agenda as there was an administrative error. It should have went on to our committee of the whole agenda. And frankly, just there wasn't enough time to actually review all the information from the Infrastructure and Transportation Committee. I've now reviewed it, but I've got to think and make some comments. I've also removed item 9.1 from the agenda. That's not due to us. There is an administrative issues that have arisen on this issue. So we have to remove it at this point in time. It will come back at a near agenda. So may I have a mover and seconder to adopt today's council agenda as amended, please? Thank you, Councillor Torderson and Councillor Olson. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. I'm going to start off with the mayor's message, and I'm sorry to be very wordy at this point in time, but I just want to clarify the error right now. I'd like to update council and the citizens of Colwood on the RCMP detachment expansion project. As you're aware, the city of Colwood is one of the 3 municipalities on the West Shore who are identified as the owners group for this important project. The safety and well-being of our residents and our RCMP officers is foundational to the quality of life that we enjoy and value here in Colwood, on the West Shore, and throughout the Capital Region. This project is a priority for council and for our residents. I'd just like to remind everyone the owners group has a long history of being good partners who, working together, optimized financial efficiencies and service delivery for our residents. We are united in our desire to provide a modern RCMP detachment that meets the long-term policing needs of the officers who are on the front line of public safety 365 days, 24/7. A new RCMP detachment is needed, and our communities and our officers are relying on us to deliver. To be very clear, they are relying on us to build the right building that will meet the needs of the RCMP and our communities for the next 20 plus years. And our residents, our taxpayers, are relying on us to be fiscally responsible and thorough in our decision. The owners group received a summary of the validation report from the Integrated Project Delivery Team, or IPD team, back in mid-December, around 19 December in actual fact. You have each received a copy on council. It contains a high-level rationale for advancing the project to ensure funding for up to $103 million. A figure that allows for the project, or a figure that allows for the budget estimate of $87.5 million, and a contingency that will cover off land acquisition and other project costs. Langford and View Royal have endorsed the validation report, as probably many of you know, seen that in the news. Colwood hit the pause button so we can investigate and ground truth a few key project elements not included in any detail in the summary validation report. So I just want to outline the report that we received is only an executive summary. It doesn't have all the details. In fact, people expected us to make $103 million decision based on a 3/4 of a page of a financial summary. And that sent up the alarm bells for me. The IPD team was to provide the full validation report on January 19th, and it has been delayed. Collaboration is valuable, but the IPD model that the owners group are following cannot replace good public governance. Under BC's community charter, Council has the responsibility to evaluate municipal policies, programs, and decisions. We have hit pause so that we can see and review the underlying full validation information, not just the summaries. I understand from conversations with CRD that the next steps are once we do a municipal consent, is we have to submit our borrow request to the Inspector of Municipalities. Then once we receive that approval, it goes back to the CRD for final reading. We've had the first 3 readings because that was the long tent in the pole. So if you wonder why we agreed with it back 3 months ago, it's because that was the long tent in the pole. As I said here, I understand from this is the conversations I had with CRD, and we only have this one chance to meet to get this right, and it's worth investing the time. As you know, we have engaged the services of Mr. Jonathan Huggett. He's well known. He's the guy, the consultant that was brought in to save the Blue Bridge. And many of you have probably heard the disasters there. And he was the guy that came in to fix it. And he is undertaking the due diligence of this project for us. So we have an expert. And I understand that he plans to bring this investigation report to council up very soon. In summary, yes, we have hit the pause button to have a good look behind the curtains, as I say. We have to look behind those curtains. We have not abandoned the project. I would say that we are more committed than ever to get it right for the greater good of all involved in this project. That's my statement. Thank you very much. At this point in time, I just want to move on to the adoption and receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of the minutes as listed under section 4 of the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Grove and Councillor Olson. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Did I miss that? How did I miss that? No, I think we did. Did we not adopt the agenda? Yes, thank you. So I didn't fall asleep at the wheel this time. Public participation. No written submissions were received prior to the agenda publication. One written submission was received after agenda publication, and that will be appended to the agenda tomorrow. And in addition, it will be available on the city's meetings website tomorrow. Just like to thank the person who submitted it for their written submission. No members of the public have registered to speak virtually, so I'll open up the floor right now for anyone that wishes to speak at this point in time. Mr. Apperly. Good evening, Mayor.
There we go. Can you hear me? I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Royal Bay Homeowners Association, which makes a nice change for John, who usually gets to have that honor. You have before you a submission and a briefing note that outline a practical opportunity and a clear path forward. In March 2024, Council approved motion R2024-104, introduced by Councillor Jordison and seconded by Councillor Ward, directing staff to examine a municipally coordinated residential waste and compost service. The work was expected to be completed in Q3 2024. We are now in early 2026, and it has yet to be returned to council. I raise this not as a criticism of staff, but as a concern about how council originated directions are progressed. When council approved initiatives, particularly those originating from members of council, remain in long-term agendas for extended periods, it raises questions about urgency, prioritization, and follow-through. While this work has been delayed, costs to residents have continued to rise. Private waste collection in Colwood now costs up to $680 per annum per household, paid directly by residents outside the property tax system. The current model also creates documented inefficiencies, overlapping truck routes, bins placed out on different days, wildlife attraction, and increased emissions and road wear, all of which translate into municipal costs already borne by taxpayers. By contrast, Langford has moved ahead. They approved a report in December 2025 and are validating it while preparing an RFP with a potential service start as early as August 2026. Our request is straightforward: to complete the work council is already authorized, to ensure that council-directed initiatives receive timely and effective follow-through. Few municipal initiatives offer an immediate household-level benefit that improves affordability, efficiency, and environmental outcomes all at once. This is one of those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Appley. We will get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak from the public? Seeing none, I will close public participation at this point in time. And we'll move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is delegations. We have a presentation by West Shore Parks and Rec Society on the 2026 budget and 5-year financial plan by Mr. Grant Brown, the CEO of the West Shore Parks and Rec Society. Over to you, Grant.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to present our 2026 requisition budget as well as the 2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan. Today I'm going to cover a few of the highlights from 2025, which will then take us into the financial projections for last year. I'll then move into an overview of the 2026 budget, considerations and how these played out into the proposed 2026 budget that's before you. And I'll also provide an overview of the capital projects slated for this year, as well as over the next 5 years and how these affect the capital project, reserve funds, and then finally conclude with some stats specific to Colwood residents' usage of the West Shore Parks Rec Society.
Would you like questions as we go along, Grant, or is that your preference, or would you?
Whichever works for you. Yeah, I'm good either way.
So, council, if you have questions as we go along, please just indicate that. Thank you.
Great. So some stats as we look at some highlights from last year. We continue to see high demand for our rental facilities. In particular for fields, we saw a 4.6% increase or 329 more hours booked in 2025 over 2024. Court rentals experienced significant growth due to the conversion of the outdoor volleyball courts into the pickleball courts in late last spring. We also saw an increase in tennis court bookings, interestingly enough, as a result of those pickleball courts being built. I think there was just, once we brought in a booking system related to pickleball, it also sparked some more interest in the tennis courts as well. Revenue targets were met for pickleball, as well as pleased to report that they operated very smoothly, as one of the concerns, unfortunately, with pickleball has always been the proximity of outdoor courts to residents and being on the West Shore Society grounds. We don't have that issue, but we had no concerns. Everyone got along well and it performed very well. As well as the arenas continue to operate near capacity, in particular with the growth of hockey academies during the day, which rent ice that historically has been hard to fill. 2025 saw a 6% or 389 more hours booked than the previous year.
Okay, question from Councillor Day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, because your fields, courts, and arena rentals are looking at the number of bookings or the number of hours that you're booked, and I'm at least trying to consider how many people are participating in recreation. Do you have a sense of whether your numbers of people who are participating are going up or just the amount of time that they're using your facilities? Like, are we reaching more people or we just have the same group coming more often?
Yeah, yes, good question. Through the chair. I mean, we are seeing more. So we had about a 10% growth in our actual database last year. So we are seeing considerable growth as we've come through. We've had a lot of new residents come in. We've actually, through some of our inclusion work, through our DEI group or community, we've actually created some connections with newcomers to the West Shore as well, and to Canada in general. And so we've had some different groups that have come in and done specific sessions, say in the weight room or different areas to gain access to the facility. So we are definitely seeing growth, as well as what we're hearing from a lot of our user groups, in particular the sports organizations, that they're coming back to us, which is sparked on a different topic, but with the master plan process is the need for more facilities, just as they're not able to meet the demands of their growing registration. And some of them are actually having to restrict registration and potentially turn some children away from some of the programs just to not being able to get into some of the facilities.
Just have one quick question for me. So are we at capacity then, or near capacity for each of these areas right now? Do you know, did you off?
Yeah, through the chair, I would say we're very, very close. We didn't see the same growth this year in the pool as an example, as the previous 2 years grew significantly. So there really isn't any more room. Our pool, to try to deal with some of the demand, is actually open for rental specifically a little earlier on the weekends. The challenge now is we're open 18 hours a day, and there's a part of the day for maintenance wise that the pool needs to be shut down so they can actually do maintenance on the filters to ensure they're functioning the next day, and same with the arenas overnight. And so we're pretty close. We're seeing now, actually, like we're this year so far, we're getting 850 visits just to the weight room. So we're getting close to that 80 people per hour into the weight room. That's going through into the evening. It's a bit quieter during the day, but even today when I was in there, we had a group of 20 kids from Brook School came through while in the weight room. And so it's definitely, if it's not at capacity, it's very, very close.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As mentioned, we're with the weight room and the growth there. We're very pleased to be voted the best place for fitness on the West Shore in 2025. We continue to see high demand for the weight room and fitness classes. It does come with some challenges. We've had to up our staffing as a result, as we're dealing with multiple personalities and just trying to coordinate with some of the different expectations from the public. Last year, the weight room, as mentioned before, experienced nearly 17,000 more visits in 2025. Which works out to, for the 360 days that it's open per year, about 47 more visits last year per day than the previous year. And as mentioned, we're upwards of 850 visits per day so far this year. Staff continue to adjust the layout of the weight room to try to help with the flow, as well as add equipment as we can. But again, it's pretty much at capacity, because there is also a little bit of just general floor space that is desired. That's actually the biggest challenge right now, is we've got a lot of equipment, but people are looking for space for just stretching and just floor work and so on. So we've opened up the fitness room, which is across the hallway when we can, when there's not classes, to try to deal with that. A major addition to the site on the West Shore community is the before mentioned outdoor pickleball court facility, which the grand opening was held on June 13th. From the day it opened until weather started to turn in late fall, the courts were heavily used by both those that reserved courts and those who dropped in, as well as we offered programs for people who wanted to take up the sport for the first time. On the first weekend in July, the inaugural Paddle Royale tournament was held, which staff planned to hold on an annual basis, which was a fun social competition of which one of the council members participated. There are 5 divisions with 30 teams of 2, and Courtside Sports was the tournament sponsor and provided prizes. There's some statistics there to show previously when there were volleyball courts, which was a much shorter season. We had roughly 700 hours booked in a year. We had 3,318 booked on the pickleball courts this year, and that doesn't include the drop-in, which is a far greater number than that, and those people that just show up, as well as we had a target for last year of 25,000 in revenue. We hit just shy of 27. So definitely a great improvement and a well sought after amenity onto the West Shore. So what does this mean financially for the society? We projected an increase in revenue versus budget for 2025 as a result of the highlights mentioned before, as well as various other performance improvements of roughly just shy of about 875,000. On that, we did have, that does bring up some expenses, of course, as there's more supplies, there's more staffing and so on, because a good chunk of that is for offering more programs. Some of the areas where we had savings, which don't necessarily help us with operations, as we continue to struggle with filling ticketed full-time maintenance roles. They're partially offset by auxiliary staff, but they're not usually as trained. They don't necessarily have the tickets. And so there's a lot of more specialized work that we had to contract out a lot this year, and contracting out is far more expensive than using staff. For example, we had a water leak, unfortunately, a water tank leak in the 55 plus activity center, which resulted in the full replacement of the auditorium floor, as well as we had a few mechanical issues with the pool air handling unit, as well as the ice plants that required specialized trades. And as mentioned, some of those extra revenues come from a result of adding more programming when we can, expanding offerings, which then of course has some staffing and costs in it, resulting, which overall we're anticipating just over $300,000 net surplus for last year.
So just a quick question, sorry, Grant, on that. So maybe cover this off later on. What do you do with the surplus, the operating surplus? Because, you know, theoretically, you're right in how you budget, you know, revenue should equal expense. Then you know you're not overtaxing or over requisitioning. So what happens to that surplus every year in general?
Yeah, through the chair, it goes into the general capital reserve. So it goes to offset our capital project work and maintaining the assets for future. So in essence, we budgeted out that our capital work through the year is all covered through the reserve. So we do contributions through the operating account into it and any surplus at the end of the year. So one of the pieces that we haven't, because the last few years with the continued growth, we haven't seen this, but if we're balanced on budget, our actual financial statements would show a deficit, because that's where the draw then comes from, the reserve to cover the capital work.
Do you keep a little bit there just for emergencies?
Yes, there's a contingency every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So then if I could do, as still at a high level, some more itemized breakdown from last year. Licensed care performed better than expected. We had a lot more kids still. There's still high demand for that, as well as some grant revenue. Our practice for the majority of the grant revenue we receive is we don't budget for it because there's no guarantee. And so as we receive those, that offsets, and we use that for some different aspects that are needed, as well as it comes in, helps with the reserve a little bit. Better program performance is mentioned across the board. Food and beverage had a much better year. That is almost entirely related to the concessions in the Q Center. We're definitely seeing, since the ownership change with the Shamrocks have always been a high attendance, but we're seeing Grizzly attendance improved a lot last year over previous years. And so that's translated into better performance in the concessions. Facility bookings, as I mentioned, as well as the arenas. And then, as I mentioned down below, we had some savings due to, unfortunately, vacant roles in maintenance. But then the offset of that is service contracts went up a lot. Programs, licensed care, those other areas, those expenses are all in direct correlation to improved revenue and needing more staffing and supplies. So moving into 2026, these are the more significant items we had to consider when developing the budget. The current approved 5-year financial plan includes a 3.9% lift for 2026. Our collective agreement ended at the end of last year. And as I've mentioned before, since we're a very labor-heavy industry, 1% wage increase for us has a value of just shy of $100,000, which is equivalent to 1.56% requisition increase. So we're always dealing with that. We had the addition of a cleaner position, resulting from so much more foot traffic in the building. We were getting concerns and some comments about the cleanliness of the washrooms and so on. So we added a daytime cleaner to help to offset some of that, which we've received great compliments for. The second phase of the surveillance equipment upgrade and expansion, asset management requirements, which also includes the $60,000 annual lift to the reserve contribution that we established in 2021, as well as the youth engagement program, where the funding ended at the end of last year. So keeping that program going, and annual rate increases of 5 to 10% for utilities. So from that, what drove the increase for 2026, we had a 1% collective bargain wage increase that took effect last July. So that affects the first half of this year with a value of just under $47,000. Utility rate increases, that increased transfer to capital reserves, the new cleaner position, but that includes load with benefits and so on. Additional scope expected for the next strategic plan. So our current strategic plan's in its final year. So we'll be doing work this year for the next 5 years. with the anticipated needs that will come out of the master plan that's being worked on. We've increased the scope for that project. The continuation of the successful youth engagement program is mentioned, as well as a wage contingency established in preparation for collective agreement negotiations, which we're hoping will start fairly soon. So this wraps up into total expenses for this year versus last year, increasing by 6.9%, which includes that youth engagement program as mentioned. Fees, program offerings, and performance expectations based on how we did this year increased by 8%, which also includes an average fee increase of 4%, which is broken out into the different areas mentioned. We continue to apply fee increases at the same rate as what our targeted requisition increase was based on the 5-year plan, just to ensure that we're spreading the load of the increase between the direct user as well as the taxpayer. This results in a requisition increase of 349,367 or 5.56% to compensate the difference. This is made up of the 3.9% that's for operations and that contribution to capital increase, as well as the 1.66% for the youth engagement program. And just as a note, the last year's increase was 3.9, of which 3.9 was also the increase that was in the 5-year plan for 2026. Moving forward into the 5-year plan for revenues, we took forward a 3.9% increase year over year, as well as a 4% increase for fee increases related to programs, rentals, and admissions. We match this on the expense side of the 3.9, as well as maintaining the annual increase to contributions. This works out, which doesn't show on here, but was in the budget packages, is a 3.9% moving down to 3.8% is our target for 2030 as far as requisitions go through the 5 years. We have an extensive capital list for this year. Some big items. We did note on here some of the items that were not completed in 2025, so they're carried forward into 2026. One of those I did want to mention was the pool boiler project, which is the most expensive one there at $340,000. The delay to that was actually we were waiting to on a grant funding related from Fortis and also from Hydro, as we're actually going to be taking the remaining recovery heat from the ice plant that's in the JDF arena that currently heats the childcare center as well as administration. There's still some extra heat left over, and that's going to be captured and used to preheat the water for the pool. So the pool boilers were actually due to be replaced, and due to that, we're actually only have to replace one of them, and that because we'll be able to preheat the water. And any excess, if there's any sort of issue or extremely cold challenge that happens with the ice plant, we actually are able to draw that extra heat from the boilers that are in the arena, due to the fact that they're not actually being taxed and having to work very often because of that heat recovery that's coming from that ice plant to heat the childcare center and the administration area. And a few other large projects in there. All of this, as you can see, is funded through funding out of the capital reserve, as mentioned, library capital, which is out of reserve, as well as IT infrastructure to replace a server that is needed for next year.
Councillor Dave, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, just a question. You have the pool boilers at the first line there for quite a large amount of money, 340,000 to do that. And then you have further down the pool hot water system for another $50,000. So I'm just wondering why those are separated out, and are they different, or what's the story there?
Yeah, through the chair. One is domestic. So the domestic hot water is the pool hot water system, and the others for actually heating the water for going into the pool.
Oh,
so
I
one's
see.
potable water versus
the pool. Yes, yeah.
Moving over the next 5 years, just a snapshot summary of the capital plan as we move forward. We continue to complete work to maintain and replace the existing infrastructure that had an appraised value in 2024 of 150 million. Our appraisals happened in December, so we just don't have the results from last year, but just due to inflation and so on, can anticipate the growth there. A couple of the big projects that show some spikes in 2027 in the Q Center is getting a fair amount of work. The seats are due to be replaced for a value of 500,000 in 2027, as well as all the rubber flooring, which is 300,000. And 2028, the flat roof on the 55+ activity center is due to be replaced at an estimated cost of 450,000. as well as our last propane Zamboni will be replaced that year for an electric. One was supposed to be done last year and actually is behind, unfortunately, at the moment and being replaced. So by 2028, all 3 Zambonis will be electric. 2029, we have the arena trip chiller being replaced for $500,000, and in 2030, the tennis courts will be getting replaced for also $500,000. And this all is funded through the reserve, where through our operating, we fund the reserve as well as through surpluses, as mentioned. What I did want to show in here, and again, this is just to bring back some of you that have been on council for a while. We would have been in the red by now when I arrived actually at West Shore 8 years ago. We're now staying in the black, and what I would like to point out there in 2030, where we actually have our contributions and our expenses getting very close to matching, which has been the goal of our capital plan when we started work on this 5 years ago. So very pleased to see that. As I mentioned, some of the receiving those grant funds and so on that we don't budget for help us make it to that level, so we're not having to ask for extra taxation for those projects as they come forward. So some of the statistics we'll share on the next slide is we'll use population statistics to aid in comparing years and impact of municipal taxes. However, the proportionating of the tax requisition is solely based on converted assessments through our operating agreements, which each of the members' finance departments provide to us. This slide just shows that the average SS value increase for the region was 3.88%, and Colwood's was just shy of that at 3.35. Since it's less than the average, Colwood's portion of the ownership is reduced by 0.11% moving into 2026. And that reduction in ownership results in a requisition increase of 5.03% or 70,536 as compared to the overall increase of 5.56. So the majority, all but Langford, is below the average. Langford tends to, in most years, push that average up, and so they've got a bit of a higher increase based on their own value compared to the rest of the group. Then we use the population prediction statistics to give an estimation what this impact is on the residents of Colwood. We see an estimated $3.18 per capita or 0.29% on municipal taxes for 2026 based on this requisition request. And then finally, in conclusion, just a few statistics to break down how Colwood's residents use our facilities. So the ownership is now at 22.22%. 15,000 or 537 of our clients are from Colwood, 28.1% of our database. 418 or 31.9% of our memberships are Colwood residents. 5,579 or 28.8% of our registrations. 59,560 or 31.7% of our drop-ins. 385 or 24.2% of our life clients. 1,080 or 31.8% of our visit passes, and 30.3% of our overall transactions. And thank you.
Thanks very much. That's a very, very good presentation, Grant. I'm just going to open the floor to anyone in council that has questions. Okay. Okay, go ahead, please. Councilor Day.
Thanks. Just when we were reviewing your future plans, one of the things that came up for me in reviewing the action plan was an emphasis on sort of reorganizing, and I felt that it sort of didn't belong in a capital plan per se. And I'm just wondering, are you still going to handle that through that process, or do you have a different process for looking at how you align management and determine best practices?
Through the chair, actually, that was in the process. That was one of the deliverables that was asked for, because one of the concerns that I shared with the members when we went through the process originally a couple of years ago to undertake this whole master plan process was right now. Sitting all on one site and how we operate is one of the reasons we're quite efficient. So as a comparable against a lot of other parks and rec departments, our cost recovery last year, for example, was around 60% on actual, was budgeted at 56. It's much higher than has been the norm in the majority of recreation departments. And some of that is our structure. The challenge is if we, based on the needs that we anticipated would come out, and again, it's a long-term 10 to 20 year plus plan, but due to the growth that's been on the West Shore, our ability to manage how we are now would be stressed under that. And it was part of that was to look at the consultant and what's coming out is what would their suggestions be for us to look at as options as we try to expand and ensure that we're expanding our staffing structure to be able to handle more facilities and extra services into the community. So it was actually one of the deliverables in the project.
Great, thank you.
Seeing no, oops, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you. And for the record, I believe that my team lost to Councillor Ward's team at that pickleball tournament, as I reflect. But it's my partner's fault. And that was a fantastic tournament. And it's nice to hear that it's coming back again. And thank you, Grant. And there's a lot of work been done here at the board level under your stewardship. And I think the finances, I mean, our finance subcommittee is, of which I am not a part of, thankfully, has done a fantastic job. And your, or the board's processes and for upcoming future works, I think is exciting. And we're ticking off some major items that have been on the list for a while. And if we can just get away from the things that keep breaking along the way too, for goodness sakes. But so thank you. And thanks for the presentation and thanks for all the information.
Okay, thanks a lot, Grant. Okay, we'll move on to item 7 on the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda. That's the cemetery management plan. I hope everyone had a chance to read it. It was pretty straightforward, actually. And if anyone wants to pull it, I can absolutely pull it. Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion. Okay, thank you. Second, Councillor Grove. Any discussion? Councillor Day?
I just wanted to comment that I think it was a very well executed plan. I've been involved with both cemeteries for a number of years, was involved with the members of the committee that restored both the church and Emery Hall, and listened to many concerns that they had about the maintenance and how to take care of things. And I just felt that the plan did a very good job of respecting that and bringing that forward. So I'm pleased to see that moving forward with good respect for all the donations, whether of labor or money that have come from members of the community. It is being maintained and well cared for, and will carry on doing so well into the future.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Day. I echo those sentiments. So I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. We'll move on to new business. 8.1, council procedure bylaw. If I can get corporate officer Marcy Lalande to introduce it, please. Marcy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this item is for council to look at the council procedure bylaw that was adopted in 2021. Since adoption and throughout this term, council has made some suggestions for changes and some resolutions to get changes put into the procedure bylaw. So we've also looked at making some minor revisions just to provide clearer language and to make it a bit of a better readable bylaw. So attached to the agenda was a redlined version of the procedure bylaw, but staff is looking for feedback from council if there's any other areas that we should focus on before bringing this forward to you. There is a legislative requirement to advertise this to the public to let them know specifically what changes we're making. So we want to ensure that we're capturing all that from council. So over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. I saw some written comments from Councillor Jordison. I believe you sent some things through. Councillor Day, would you, and then I'll go to you, Councillor Jordison.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out it's a very small niggly thing, but under the section 17 electronic meetings, the format has a little bit of an error in it. It has I, and 1, 2, and 3, but in little letters. And the "and" that goes with those bullets is just in the wrong place. And there needs to be a little check over the punctuation, whether you want punctuation or don't, or how that works. It should be the same for all 3. And I just wanted to suggest that I would like us to consider adding an extra minute onto public participation for a total of a potential 5 minutes. So instead of 2 minutes to begin, I'm suggesting we offer 3 because I've noticed that most people have trouble um, being succinct enough to get their point across in 2 minutes. So if we gave them 3 to start with a potential for another 2 minutes, I think that would balance the need to have um, time efficient public participation, but also hear clearly from the public on points they want to bring to our attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jordison, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I did provide some suggested changes for the electronic meeting policy portion, but unfortunately, when the Appendix 1 was uploaded with the red line, it was originally only uploaded with one-sided, so like page 3, 5, 9, or 7, 9, that sort of thing, and missing the other page. So I don't feel that I have had a full opportunity to review the full package, so I don't know how you want to deal with that, but I think that it's important that this is an opportunity to make some changes because basically because the province has taken a lot of things away for public hearing and that sort of thing, and there's an opportunity to maybe bring some other additional things into it. So from my perspective, I haven't had a time to review that red line package because I didn't have the full package. So I would like the opportunity to do that. I think here, well, I don't know. I'd like to maybe make it so that I can have further time to review it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to propose adding just some clarification in the procedure bylaw around councillors sharing media during meetings. And I just draw on personal experience. I know when I was speaking about the possibility of a dog park, I'd created some slides with some visuals to kind of better explain it. And initially I was told that I could not share that, that there were delegation rules, and I object to that because there is nothing in the council procedure bylaws to identify that. So I've taken a look at other jurisdictions, and in fact, City of Victoria just had a debate on this like last week before. And the wording that seems to be commonplace that they have is just that to put an annotation or a note in the procedure bylaws that there's no clear general ban in the procedure bylaw on councillors sharing media during meetings, but any presentation of audio video should fit within procedural rules. And in brackets, agenda items, motion relevance, chair permission, and respect decorum. So basically, if you're speaking to, now let's say it's a development issue or something about a particular area, you could put up a screenshot of Google Maps, which I think would actually help the public that's either watching video or here to see. Oftentimes when you're just verbalizing something, folks might not know where the cul-de-sac at the end of Restoration Way is. Well, if you can put up a map to demonstrate that, I think that transparency helps everybody. Same with visuals around, hey, this is where I'm talking about when I speak of a dog park, is this particular parcel. So looking not to establish a new rule, but to clarify that as of today, there is no rule. It really is up to the chair in most jurisdictions. And I've sent that wording through to the corporate officer and everyone at the council table.
Super, thanks very much. So this isn't, right now, these are just changes that we would like. We're gonna put them all in, incorporate them. I don't think it should go to council. I should think it should go committee of the whole, so we can have a wholesome discussion. And just a question to yours right now, and I don't have too many problems with the 3-minute public speaking or public participation, but right now at 2, and we limit ourselves to 20 minutes, that's 10 speakers. So go 3. So just think about something that when you want to add that, do we want to expand that then? Because with 3, that's only six speakers. So think about if we want to expand that time frame in your very valid amendment proposal. So anyways, no, they're all good. And if you can please incorporate the changes that have been recommended by Councillor Jordison. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that Kim, so they were good actually, so no issues there. So let's bring it back to direction is let's bring it back to committee of the whole instead of going for first, second, and third reading right away. Let's have committee of the whole. Okay, Councillor Jensen.
Sorry, my comments may be superfluous, but I thought I heard my colleague suggest a referral to a future meeting, and it is quite voluminous and there's a lot to go through. And since I had a look at it, I've thought about some other things, so I would like another opportunity. But if you think that's best resolved by a future referral to committee of the whole, I can get behind that. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So let's look at the recommendation. The recommendation right now is that council directs staff to schedule the council procedure bylaw for upcoming. I'm just going to change that to a committee of the whole, please, is what I would suggest that. And that statutory notice describing proposed changes be provided in accordance with community. Yeah, that still stands, I guess, once we get it to first and second, third reading. So, and I'm just going to open it up to council. Please get all your, within the next week, if you can get all your comments to the corporate services, that would be great. And then we can schedule on an upcoming committee of the whole, if that works with everybody. So the motion is, I'll just read what I'm just going to suggest. The motion is that council directs staff to schedule the council procedures bylaw for an upcoming council committee of the whole. Okay, thank you very much. Again, Councillor Jensen.
Sorry, briefly, I ended up going through this within the agenda minutes. Does anyone recall, did we get this in a Word document? I would way prefer to go through this in a Word document. It's just rather than a scanned image. I'm sorry, it's cumbersome and it's not clear, and a Word document would be preferable if we can include both those options for review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I made the motion and Council Ward seconded it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. And that finishes the new business, and we are going to go into camera. So I am going to take a recess at this time so we can clear the room.